Welcome back to a somber episode of the Warehouse Podcast, everyone. I'm going to thank our sponsor before I get into it. It feels incorrect to interrupt it at any point. It feels like it's not doing him the proper justice. Going to thank our sponsor. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, to NHL and UFC, BetOnline is the number one sports betting source for the new year. From touchdowns to three-pointers, hat tricks, BetOnline has you covered on every game, every play, every win. Bet online, the game starts here. So today's topic, unfortunately, former Oriole Brian Matusz has passed away. He died on Tuesday, the 7th. I think I'll be releasing this on the 9th. Matusz was 37 years old. I just wanted to take a couple minutes, sometime to remember him. Um, I I'll point it out at the end, but there are not many people who were so present in sort of the resurgence of Orioles baseball that happened in the early teens, the early 20 teens, I guess I should say. Um, and that's especially pertinent to me. I was born in 95. I'm about to turn 30. That was the first good Orioles team that I had ever seen. Uh, Good winning Orioles baseball was just literally not a thing, since I had been single digit years old and unable to form long-term memory. So this was special, and Brian Matusz was so present through all of that. Um, so I guess let's jump into it. Mattis was drafted fourth overall pick of the 2008 draft by us, of course. He was coming off a season at the University of San Diego where he went 12 and 2. He threw 105 innings with a 1.71 ERA, struck out 141 guys, again, 105 innings, walked only 22. He gave up only 83 hits, which, if you're doing some quick math like I was, that is a perfect one whip. He had three complete game shutouts that year, truly dominant. Um, Dominant enough to be drafted fourth overall by the Orioles out of his junior year. In his first year after being drafted, that 2008 season, he didn't play any regular season minor league games. He did, however, go straight into the Arizona Fall League that fall of 2008. In 2009, he started with the Frederick Keys. I was reading this and I'm like, man, the Frederick Keys. Haven't heard that in a while. Um, Started with Frederick and got promoted to Bowie partway through the year. All in all, chucked 113 innings before getting promoted in his first full professional season. So fast ascent. Andy MacPhail had no consideration for developing a prospect in any way, but we all knew that. Um, so, yeah, he debuts on August 4th, 2009. He's only 22 years old. He threw five innings, gave up only one run. He got the dub. This was against Detroit, so at 22 years old, this dude is staring down Maglio Ordonez and Miguel Cabrera. Cabrera, who had like a 949 OPS at the time of this game, and Mattis just coolly and calmly walked away with the win. Um, I did a fun little trip down memory lane as I was looking at this, of course, and I had to look at the O's lineup. The O's lineup was leading off Brian Roberts at second base, hitting second Nolan Reimold in left field, Nick Markakis in right field, Adam Jones in center, Aubrey Huff at DH, Melvin Mora at third, Ty Wigington at first, Matt Wieters catching, and Cesar Izturis at shortstop. Cesar Izturis of the fastest transfer at second base that you've ever seen. The smoothest hands, fastest hands. Loved watching that guy play defense. Um, and I guess for a little bit more, Chris Ray and Matt Albers cleaned up the rest of the game for Mattis after he left after five. So some fun names, fun little trip down memory lane there. The next year, 2010, Mattis would go on to start 32 games for the O's. He did maintain rookie eligibility, so through the course, or maintained it in 2009. So through the course of throwing 175 and two-thirds innings, accumulating 2.8 B and F WAR, Mattis earned himself yeah, I don't want to say he got a ton of Rookie of the Year votes or anything, but he was tied for fifth with two other guys, John Jaso and Brennan Bosch, for Rookie of the Year voting in the AL that year. Obviously put together a huge volume of work. If my memory isn't serving me, I was just looking at it. Yeah, that was the most innings he had thrown in a season or would throw in a season in his entire career. Um, and again, did so at just 23 years old. Super impressive. Uh, and almost a three-win season from a rookie pitcher. You really can't be mad at it. Most of that was obviously on volume, but in 2011, he was, yeah, really limited by injuries. ERA over 10, only started 12 games if my memory serves. He really just struggled. 2011 was kind of a washed year. Uh, and then he came out in 2012, continued to struggle, and eventually made his way to the bullpen. And this is where Brian Matusz becomes the Brian Matusz that we know and love. I think that a lot of us can remember, oh, we drafted this kid. Oh, he looks good the entire way through the minor leagues, and excited to see what he is as a starting pitcher. But once he took that next step was when we were like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And back then, important context for Brian Matusz's career, the rule where a relief pitcher did or has to stay in for three batters consecutively or finish the inning was not yet implemented. So he was very much um, a guy who attacked lefties. A lot of us have been talking about his battles with David Ortiz, if you can call them that. Um, and I will talk about Big Poppy toward the end. Don't get me wrong, but um, I want to stick on this 2012 season because as soon as he left the rotation, he just transformed. Um, so in 2012, after moving to the bullpen, Brian Matusz struck out 19 of 47 batters faced for a K percentage, a K rate of over 40%. And he walked only three guys for a walk rate of just over 6%. He gave up five hits, did not allow a double or a triple, allowed just one home run. His total whip was a zero point 0.6, which you may remember Zach Britton's. I remember his whip was higher than his ERA. I think he had the 0.58 ERA in 2016. His whip was something like a zero point 0.8. So, fewer base runners on a rate basis than Zach Britton was giving up in his dominant season. Um, yeah, Mattis's FIP was under 1.9. I don't think I wrote it on here, but the ERA was like a 1.1 or 1.7, something like that. He was dominant. He was dominant. It was just amazing. And he caps off this season, this first half season in the bullpen by pitching in all six of the Orioles playoff games. Buck was like, yes, you are the guy. Go forth and be merry. Um, definitely one of the biggest uh, memories that stuck with me, besides the David Ortiz stuff. And shout out to Vivek for posting this in some of our group chats and such. But the Josh Hamilton at bat in the wild card game, Josh Hamilton, playing for the Rangers, 2012 AL wild card game. Hamilton came in fifth in MVP voting that year. He hit 43 home runs, had an OPS of 930. Mattis comes in, and I just have to reiterate. I'm gonna make sure I don't screw up his age, and I'm gonna look real quick. Yeah, in 2012, this dude is 25 years old. So Mattis goes ahead, staring down one of the most dominant sluggers, and he sits him down on three pitches with a runner in scoring position. Just just I mean, cojones. I shouldn't even say that, but just like nerves of steel, ice in his veins. He comes in and he dominates one of the best hitters in the game. He then continues to appear in the next five games that we play against the Yankees. Obviously, we lost that series, 3 games to 2. If you have a good memory, this part had escaped me until I was preparing for this episode, but you may remember a certain Raul Ibanez swing from game 3. It was Brian Matusz who gave up that walk-off home run, but He only did so after sitting down Eric Chavez, Jason Nix, and Ichiro Suzuki in the 11th inning. That walk-off home run was in the 12th. Um, and that was the only run and one of two hits that Mattis allowed in the six appearances that postseason. Um, you know, just a pretty awesome run, and especially for a guy like I think this is when he kind of endeared himself to a lot of the Orioles fan base as he went ahead and he was struggling, and we said, "Hey, we're gonna try out. Come do this thing. Let's see how you adapt to it." And he took it and he hit the ground running. It was awesome. Um, Mattis then, like at the height of the O's power from 2013 to 2015, he's a staple in the Orioles pen. In those 3 years, he never has less than 58 appearances. He never had an ERA over 3.53. He was just consistent. He was that guy you could count on. Um, and he was part of this wave. At the end, I'll mention like when he left the team, who was still there from when he began, and I think it'll shock you. I mean, Mattis was one of the guys the entire way through this. Um, so I I told you I eventually was going to give in to temptation and read off some stats against David Ortiz. David Ortiz, to take one quick step back, did really terrorize the Orioles for many years. In his career, he put up a 922 OPS against us. He walked more than 15% of the time. So that's, one in every six or seven at bats. The Orioles just said, honestly, I just don't want to mess with it. Go ahead and take first base. Um, in Mattis's first full season, 2010, he faced Ortiz 9 times and he struck him out 8 times. For those not satisfied with that, yes, he also got him out on the ninth time as well. All in all, throughout their careers, they faced each other 30 times. Ortiz struck out 43% of the time, 13 of 30 plate appearances. Ortiz walked only once and managed only 4 hits. In sort of a weird stroke of fate, 3 of those 4 hits were actually doubles. So um, that makes his slugging percentage against Mattis almost look like a batting average. But in all, the triple slash for David Ortiz against Brian Mattis is a measly 138, 167, 241 for a 408 OPS. Really like turned I I cannot stress enough. David Ortiz had no defensive value, had no base running value. The only thing that this man could do was hit the ball and hit it very far. And he was very good at it. And it was infuriating to all of us Orioles fans. That was what he did. And to take somebody who gets into the Hall of Fame for being able to do one thing and so completely and totally neutralize his ability to do that thing was astonishing. And it was awesome because, Mattis, Brian Mattis, I just mixed names. Mattis is up there, not even like out of the pen, he was probably hitting 93 or so. It was never like any kind of power stuff. And David Ortiz just embodied power stuff, he was that. He hit moonshots into the Fenway night. And Brian Mattis just came up there and just sat him down over and over and over. It was astonishing. It was heroic. Um, and it embodied, I think, what we came to love about him, just taking to this new role and finding a way to do it for so long with the O's. Um, as fun as all that is, I've got one more important thing to say about Mattis. This is a pretty quick episode. Just wanted to do him his due diligence. Um, but one more important thing to say here, maybe the most important thing to say here. My and Jesse's mother worked in the pediatric intensive care unit at Sinai Hospital in Baltimore for many, many years. Without doubt, the most frequent visitor from the Orioles in any period of her, 25, 30 years working there was Brian Mattis. He would come in and see the kids in the PICU every few months for the duration of his time with the O's. He would do something that not many players would do when he did that. He would stop and he would chat with the nurses and he would thank them for what they're doing and he would take pictures with them. And my mom would come home with these pics of her and Brian. I think I'm gonna try to find one and maybe make it the thumbnail if you go check out on YouTube. But that's a pretty special thing. It's a lot of these players are coming through, and oh, you shake hands, you kiss babies, you be on your way. Um, but there was intentional time being given, and I fully understand that it feels like this is a thing that's coming out of, oh, somebody has passed away. Let's find some nice stuff to say about them. This is genuinely like, I distinctly remember if you had asked me, I can remember two players visiting the hospital. I remember Chris Davis did it once or twice, and I remember Brian Matusz did it a bunch of times. This was a consistent thing. She would say, guess who came to see me again? And that was a super exciting thing for me, as a young Orioles fan. And obviously exciting for her and the, devoted employees at that hospital. So a lot of players do some sort of outreach, but he undoubtedly went above what are the standard obligations of somebody in his position. And it's not like this guy was Adam Jones. He wasn't a superstar, and it, him being there would obviously make somebody feel better, but it's not like, he had this celebrity that he was just throwing around. He was a relief pitcher and quite frankly, mostly a lefty specialist. He would get some innings, but um this is a guy who was genuinely devoted to giving his time. He would do so with earnest, with gusto, and yeah, it's a special thing, and it's rare, and he should be commended for that. And that is undoubtedly something that I want to leave you guys as the listeners with um, when I'm talking about him. The only other note that I have here to just kind of hammer home, what how much of a staple Mattis was, how present he was, and really, like how his time with the Orioles coincided with this ascent that I'm talking about to a respectable organization. When the Orioles traded Brian Matusz in 2016, there were only four players who were with the O's for his debut, and those players were Matt Wieters, Adam Jones, Nick Markakis, and Chris Tillman. And those four guys, if you talk about the Orioles playoff run, Wieters, Jones, Markakis are maybe, some of the most y- y- like they were the glue of the entire lineup. We always talked about the center field defense or the up the middle defense with Wieters, Hardy, and Jones. You talked about Markakis as this like pinnacle of consistency. We always joke about how he was the most underrated player during his time. Obviously, we had the flashes of Manny Machado. Obviously, Chris Davis came in and made an impact. But you talk about guys who were the glue of the organization through that period. It was those guys. And Chris Tillman was like he was our ace. We always joked because like in retrospect, we like moving through this, we always say, "Oh, the Orioles have never had an ace until Corbin Burns," going back to Messina. You skip over Chris Tillman because while Chris Tillman was very good, he was not Messina or Corbin Burns, but Chris Tillman was leading the pitching staff through again what was the ascension of an entire organization. And these are the guys that Brian Matusz stuck around with. These are the guys that he was present with through his entire time with the Orioles. Um, so when you think back on him, just like remember how present he was through some of the most important times, what a critical role he did play. Um, like yeah, getting back to the playoffs for the first time in 15 years or so, advancing through that first round, at least taking the Yankees to bat. We drove it to 5 games. It included a walk-off home run for them. CC Sabathia was going off in the last game. It's just, that was competitive, and that was the first time that we as O's fans had seen like a team go into battle on the field in a long, long time. And Brian Matusz was very much a part of that. He was there for it. He was valued and he was loved by fans. Um, so we, I guess, at the Warehouse Pod, we thank him for his contributions, not only to the Orioles, but to the Baltimore community, to those kids and those nurses and doctors at Sinai Hospital. Um, yeah, it's tragic. Uh, I don't think a cause of death has been released, but I also, frankly, don't think it's any of our business. I, hope he was at peace. I hope this was a freak accident, and um, yeah, he'll be remembered. So, rest in peace, Brian Matusz. We will continue our numerous conversations about the disarray of the Orioles organization next time on the Warehouse Pod. As always, if you could be so kind, subscribe to the show, follow us, like us, rate us, leave comments. Definitely feel free to reach out thewarehousepod@gmail.com. Let us know what we're doing well, not doing well. We're always happy to talk. You can find us on Twitter, on Blue Sky, at the Warehouse Pod. You can find us in the I am always like literally it's bad. It's all I do, but the Orioles on the Verge Discord account or Discord group. Their Patreon channel is phenomenal. Go support those guys as well. Talk to Bob, and I promise we'd have him on here at some point this year. Maybe a little look ahead to spring training, see what prospects we're excited about. Um, but yeah, come engage with us. We love hearing from you guys, love chatting with you. It's obviously why we do this podcast. So, yeah, to bring it back to the somber note to close out, though, again, this is a tragedy. He was, I said I'm about to turn 30. I turned 30 in 8 days. Um, Mattis is not much older than me. This is somebody who, as a kid, I was idolizing, and you feel your mortality. You feel, the fragility and the transient nature of this thing we call life. So, hug your loved ones. Um, say hi to people, take care of your people, and yeah, we'll check in with you soon. This has been the Warehouse Pod. My name's Elijah. Go O's.